Nobody does this. Nobody takes a silhouette that aggressive, that low, that wide, that black, and parks it next to a motorhome category. And yet, here we are. Because whatever this is, whatever design mind conjured it into existence, they weren't thinking about highway rest stops. They were thinking about private terminals. Welcome to the Obsidian. Now, before we go any further, I want to be straight with you up front, the way any honest host should be. What you're looking at is an AI-generated concept design. It does not exist. No factory is building it, no showroom is expecting a delivery, no one has a price tag on it. It is pure imagination. And that is exactly what makes it worth spending the next 15 minutes on. Because when you remove every real-world constraint, what a designer reaches for tells you everything about where this category could go. Here's what we're doing today. Full walk-around, front face, side profile, those 6 wheels, the roofline, all of it. Then we're going inside because the exterior of this thing raises some very specific questions about what's happening in there, and I have some strong theories. After that, the powertrain logic, the off-grid story, and finally, my honest verdict. What this gets right, what seems questionable, and the one detail I think is genuinely ahead of its time. Stay with me, because there is something happening on the roofline of this vehicle that I want to save until we get there, and once I explain what I think the designer intended up there, you're going to look at this whole concept differently. Let's go. Let's start at the front, because the front face of the Obsidian is the first thing that tells you this isn't operating in the same design language as anything else in this category. Most motorhomes come at you soft, rounded noses, curved windshields, a general visual apology for how large they are. The Obsidian does the opposite. This thing comes at you hard. The front face is nearly vertical, almost architectural, with a grille structure that echoes ultra-luxury saloons. You can see the formal, symmetrical split of that vertical grille element, and it's flanked by angular headlight clusters that sit low and wide. They're not just lights, they're a statement of intent. This vehicle knows exactly how big it is, and it has decided that's a feature, not a problem. The gold. Let's talk about the gold because it's doing all the emotional heavy lifting across this entire exterior, running from the front face, along the roofline, and tracing the full body length. These aren't just accent lines, they are the design language. On a vehicle this black, this matte, this deliberately dark, those gold lines are the only things separating it from a monolith. They catch light in a way the body doesn't. At highway speed, you'd see this vehicle as a moving architectural drawing, black mass, gold outlines, nothing else. That's not accidental, that's mastery. Moving down the side profile, and this is where proportions get genuinely interesting. The habitable section of this concept stretches what appears to be somewhere between 12 and 15 meters in length. That's based on the wheelbase relative to what looks like standard rim sizing, and we'll come back to those wheels in a moment. But that side-on silhouette is worth stopping on because the roofline does something I want you to notice. It doesn't stay flat, it curves. There's a gentle downward tapering toward the rear, almost like a fastback, which is aerodynamically intelligent for a vehicle this size and this tall. In real engineering terms, that rearward taper is actively managing the airflow that would otherwise pile up behind a blunt-ended box at highway speed. Less turbulence, less drag, better efficiency. And it looks incredible doing it. The glass. The side glass runs in 2 distinct horizontal bands, and even from this angle, you can see they are substantial. Not porthole windows, not narrow slits. These are full, sweeping apertures that span most of the habitable section. Think about what that means for the interior, for natural light, for spatial awareness, for the feeling of being connected to the landscape you're traveling through. In most motorhomes, you're sealed inside a box with a few windows cut reluctantly into the walls. In the Obsidian, imagine something closer to a glass pavilion on wheels. That's a completely different experience. Now, the wheels. 6 of them. 3 axles, and this is one of the decisions on this concept that shifts it from an interesting design exercise into genuinely ambitious engineering territory. A 6-wheel motorhome configuration exists in reality. It's used for heavy payload distribution and stability at scale. The Obsidian appears to embrace this fully, with what look like large diameter wheels, possibly in the 22 to 24-inch range, wrapped in low-profile tires and fitted with these deeply concave gloss black rims with a single gold center ring. The rim design echoes the body language perfectly. Dark, minimal, with that single point of gold. Every element of this exterior is speaking the same visual language, and the wheels are no exception. At highway speed, and I want you to picture this, 6 wheels rolling, gold lines catching light, black flanks moving through space. This thing wouldn't look like a motorhome, it would look like infrastructure in motion. The rear, and this is the moment I mentioned in the opening. From what we can see, the rear of the Obsidian features a continuation of those gold accent lines framing the tail section, with what appears to be an integrated diffuser element at the base. Now, diffusers on motorhomes are almost non-existent. They're an aerodynamic tool borrowed from performance cars, designed to manage airflow exiting from under the vehicle. On something this long, this low, and this deliberately aerodynamic in its shaping, a real diffuser isn't a styling gimmick. It's a logical conclusion. It says the designer wasn't just thinking about how this vehicle looks parked. They were thinking about how it performs at 130 kilometers per hour. The exterior of the Obsidian is one of the most cohesive concept designs I've analyzed in this space. One visual language executed at every single touchpoint. But honestly, the exterior is the easy part. What I think is happening inside this vehicle, based on everything the outside is telling us, that's where this gets genuinely interesting. No interior renders exist for this concept. So let's do what I love doing. Let's treat the exterior as evidence and work out what it's telling us about the world inside. This is detective work, and the clues are everywhere. First clue, that roofline height. From the exterior proportions, the habitable section of the Obsidian appears to sit at somewhere between 2.4 and 2.7 meters total vehicle height, with the chassis and floor structure consuming roughly 40 to 50 centimeters of that, which means interior ceiling height is potentially approaching 2 meters or slightly above. In a motorhome, full stand-up height. Not crouching, not tilting your head, not doing that thing where you forget and bang your skull on the overhead cabinet every morning. Standing, upright, in your own home, on wheels. That single measurement, if my estimate is right, is the difference between feeling like you're staying somewhere and feeling like you're surviving somewhere. Now let's think about layout. The Obsidian's side glass arrangement tells us something important. Those 2 horizontal bands of glazing are positioned at roughly eye height for a seated person below and standing height above. That's not one continuous living space. That suggests, at minimum, 2 distinct zones with different floor-to-ceiling uses. My read is a forward living and dining area under the upper glass band and a rear sleeping zone that makes use of the lower, more private glazing. A classic A-class motorhome logic, but executed at a scale and quality level that changes the conversation entirely. The living area. If the glass runs as far as it appears to, you're looking at natural light from both sides of the vehicle flooding a central space that could comfortably accommodate a proper lounge configuration, not fold-out furniture, not compromises.
We're talking about a space where you could have a real sofa, a dining table you'd actually want to eat at, surfaces you don't have to reconfigure every time you move from one activity to another. Living in a space like this wouldn't feel like camping. It would feel like staying in a very well-designed boutique hotel that happens to be parked somewhere extraordinary. And here's where the camping angle becomes genuinely compelling, because unlike a hotel, the Obsidian could park in places a hotel never could. Picture this interior flooded with morning light in the Dolomites, or alongside the coast of Norway in late summer when the sun barely sets, or at the edge of a canyon in the American Southwest where the nearest building is 40 miles away. That glass, that ceiling height, those aren't luxury details in that context. They're the whole reason you're there. The sleeping quarters. Based on the rear section proportions and the tapering roofline, I'd expect the master sleeping area to be positioned at the rear, benefiting from the slightly more enclosed, private feel the tapered roof creates. A full king-size or generous queen configuration seems architecturally feasible here. What's interesting is that the lower rear glass band could function as ambient lighting elements or privacy glass panels that go opaque on demand, smart glass technology that exists today and would be a natural inclusion in a concept at this level. You'd wake up, clear the glass with a touch, and your view is whatever you parked next to the night before. That's not a feature, that's a reason to live this way. Kitchen. In a vehicle with this footprint, a serious kitchen becomes genuinely possible, not a two-burner hot plate over a shallow sink. We're potentially looking at a full induction cooking surface, under-counter refrigeration, a proper preparation area. The design aesthetic of the exterior, that obsessive commitment to black surfaces and gold accents, almost certainly continues inside. Imagine matte black cabinetry, gold hardware, surfaces that look like they belong in an architect's apartment rather than a vehicle. Because in this concept, there's no reason they can't. The wet bathroom, if you prefer, is the one area where even the most ambitious motorhome has to make real concessions. Physics constrains the plumbing, but with a vehicle this wide, likely 2.5 meters or beyond, a separate shower enclosure, vanity unit, and toilet become spatially achievable. Not enormous, but real. The kind of bathroom you don't have to apologize for. The cockpit. This is where I think the concept could be its most forward-looking. That near vertical front face and the elevated seating position implied by the chassis height would give the driver a commanding, almost elevated view of the road. I'd expect, in the world of this concept, a minimalist digital instrument cluster, a heads-up display projected onto the lower windshield, and a steering interface that looks borrowed from a near-future performance saloon. Potentially even a level of autonomous driving assist that means the driver's seat is sometimes the least interesting seat on the vehicle. Smart systems, climate, connectivity, automation. A concept this considered wouldn't stop at aesthetics. Zoned climate control, scene-based lighting that shifts from morning cool to evening warm, whole vehicle Wi-Fi that switches between satellite and cellular depending on location. These are technologies that exist right now, today, in various products. In the Obsidian, they'd just be the baseline.
All right, my honest take. What the Obsidian gets genuinely right is something that sounds simple but is actually very hard to do. It has a singular vision, and it executes that vision without compromise at every single touchpoint. The black, the gold, the 6 wheels, the fastback roofline, the architectural front face. Every decision points in the same direction. That kind of design coherence is rare even in real production vehicles from major manufacturers with enormous budgets. The fact that a concept generated from imagination achieves it this completely is genuinely impressive. The detail I find most impressive, and I've thought about this carefully, is the roofline treatment. That gentle rearward taper is simultaneously the most aesthetically distinctive element and the most engineering literate choice on the vehicle. It's not there to look interesting, it's there because it should be there. When form and function arrive at the same answer, that's when design becomes something more than style. What seems questionable? The front face, as dramatic as it is, creates a practical challenge. That near vertical nose at this scale would generate significant aerodynamic pressure at highway speeds. In a real engineering scenario, you'd need to work very hard in the front fascia geometry to manage that. The concept doesn't obviously solve this, and a real manufacturer would have to. It's a trade-off the designer chose to make in favor of visual impact. I understand why. I'm not sure physics would be as forgiving. What would I change? The wheel treatment, actually. Those rims are beautiful, but I'd want to see a covered wheel arch option, almost like a partial spat, to clean up the side profile further and reinforce that sense of a single, continuous form moving through space. It would also improve aerodynamics meaningfully. Sometimes the right design decision and the right engineering decision are the same decision. What does the Obsidian say about where luxury mobility is heading? It says this: the next generation of people who want to travel the world aren't willing to accept that mobile means compromised. They want the design quality of a flagship hotel. They want the technology of a premium electric vehicle. They want the freedom of the open road and the capability to disappear into nature completely. The Obsidian imagines a world where all of that exists in one object, and honestly, it's not as far away as it sounds. This vehicle will never exist exactly as you've seen it today. It's an AI-generated concept. It lives in imagination, not in steel. But the ideas embedded in it, the commitment to coherent design at scale, the off-grid capability, the belief that mobile living can be genuinely extraordinary, those ideas are very real, and they're worth taking seriously. Here's my question for you. The Obsidian is built around one non-negotiable design choice, that black and gold exterior. If you were the client who commissioned this, would you keep it exactly as it is, or does part of you want to see a lighter colorway? White and silver? Deep navy and rose gold? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know what color you'd put on this thing. And if this kind of deep dive concept analysis is what you come to YouTube for, there's a lot more of it on this channel. Hitting subscribe is the simplest way to make sure you're here for the next one. I'll see you there.